Our panel has stayed with us. Bill Rhoden is joined. Bill Rhoden, writer-at-large for ESPN's Undefeated, is here. So is John Q. Kelly, lead attorney for the estate of Nicole Brown Simpson, civil litigator, defense attorney, Katie Fang, MSNBC legal analyst, and Ari Melber, MSNBC's chief legal analyst. And since you are the chief, I am obligated to start with you, sir. What did we learn?
Look, this was a fascinating hearing to see O.J. Simpson's state of mind. He mentioned he's turned down media requests. That's certainly true. There are many people that would have liked to have heard from him more in prison. What we heard, Craig, was a man who still thinks he got a raw deal in this robbery prosecution, a man who, as you just played some of the sound, repeatedly tried to explain, or in legal parlance, mitigate the underlying circumstances of that incident. The problem with that is not what today's parole hearing is about. This is not a retrial of the underlying facts. I think as a legal matter, that was a mistake, and I think as a human matter, if you'll allow me this observation, I think that related more to his emotional state of mind or needs as opposed to the best strategic options at his disposal, which are, of course, to express the humility and remorse that the parole board both directly asked for and which are a part of the point system and the sort of review process. Having said all that, I will close with this observation, something you and I were discussing before we came back out into our live coverage. It took an hour and 5 minutes, but it did happen. An hour and 5 minutes into this parole hearing, we heard those words from O.J. Simpson, "I am sorry." He started by talking about why maybe this wasn't even really a robbery, but he ended by saying, "I am sorry." That is certainly, I would say, on the minds of these parole board officials who are considering at this very moment whether to let him out of jail.
I will say at one point, about 20 minutes in, it looked like this thing was really going to go off the rails. When he leaned forward, and we saw the O.J. Simpson that was described by attorneys back during that '94 trial, a man who is capable of great anger. When he leaned forward and he said, "It was my property," and you saw what appeared to be his lip begin to quiver there, Katie Fang. Is that at all what you were expecting?
Not at all. I saw more contrition, remorse from his daughter Arnell than I saw from O.J. Simpson. And that's disappointing because when you're on that parole board and you're one of those commissioners, you want him to embrace what he's done so that he can promise you what they said that they're considering are risk assessments. Are you going to be a risk to society if I let you out into the community? And you want to feel good about the decision if you're that commissioner. And I don't know if they saw that in O.J. Simpson today. In fact, other than this point system that Ari's talked about, this objective factor point system, he really was not ringing the bell today, he being O.J., for his release. At
times it also seemed as if perhaps he and his attorney, Malcolm Laverne, it didn't seem like they were overly prepared.
Oh, it was disappointing. If you're his lawyer, you want to prepare him for what he says. And if you're his lawyer, you're going to argue for your client's release from prison. If not, he's got some time left on that 33-year sentence. He's only done 9. He could do a total of 33.
Shuffling around looking for a letter that, you know.
Where's the letter?
All that notwithstanding, do we still think the same thing that we thought, 2 hours ago, that these commissioners will likely vote to grant him parole?
The last time these commissioners looked at it under this system, he was granted parole on other charges. There is nothing that we just saw that would expect us to deviate strongly from that. Having said that, as we said at the top of our coverage, this is a process of human beings making this determination. And the big difference, Craig, is last time they knew, even when they granted parole on those charges, he wouldn't get out of prison. This time they know the result. Now, I will tell you, legally, that's not supposed to them. They are supposed to make an objective rendering based on the points and their assessment of the defendant. Having said that, everyone knows, and they made direct reference to it in the hearing, that the eyes of the nation are on these commissioners. So while we sit here and say, how will they objectively do their duty under the additional pressure, media pressure, political pressure, cultural pressure, scrutiny, will that go into their mindset? Because we're waiting here on a process that usually takes anything from 15 to 25 minutes.
These commissioners made it abundantly clear a couple weeks ago. This is a process in which they usually take 2 weeks to bring back the decision. They want to get folks out of Loveland, Nevada, Lovelock, Nevada. So they have made it a priority to get a decision back 20, 30 minutes from now. And that is what we are waiting on. John Q., what did you hear from O.J. Simpson there? Were you at all surprised, or was that classic O.J. for you?
Well, it was both surprising and classic. I'll always see him through the same lens, but He did his best to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. I didn't think it was possible. That was all a foregone conclusion. But he was not remorseful. He was not apologetic.
Until the end.
Well, it's a shame you focus on those 3 words, I am sorry. But it was an hour and 5 minutes before that saying, I'm not sorry. It wasn't my fault. Everybody else was to blame for it. This stuff didn't happen. It was my property. And the most frightening thing of all this, Craig, really frightening, is that flash of rage you saw when he said the state ruled it was my property. You saw the change in his eyes. You saw the change in his demeanor. And that's all it takes to take someone's life, too. That's still in him. He's never going to change. It's frightening, the thought of him being on the streets.
You think that even O.J. Simpson at 70 years old is capable of violence and evil?
Absolutely. Play back that 10-second segment. See if you can cue it up, because that.
Mr. Roten, you were probably the only person at this table who spent a week with O.J. Simpson back in 1979. You're working for Ebony magazine. They sent you out there to L.A. The O.J. that you saw there in that courtroom, was that the same O.J. that you saw some 38 years ago?
Well, yeah, we've all changed. Put on some weight. Don't run as fast. Yes and no. I think that not only in just covering O.J., but in just covering a lot of athletes. There's a part of being of these people, men and women, who just at some point can't accept, if they feel there's something that they've been wronged, there's a part that just can't let it go.
Even if the prospect of 4 or 5 more years in prison is staring you in the face.
Well, you heard it. You heard it. I mean, I personally think if I had to vote now, I'd say that they're going to vote to let him walk. But I think we always want to see contrition. But I think in certain people, in his mind, he was saying, this was my stuff. I was right. Now, I disagree with you just in terms of the violence and the fright. Now, I think that, do I think that he'd be capable of violence? No, I really don't. I don't. And frankly, I kept going back to when I met him and the guy I knew, even when the whole thing of 94 came and the murders and all that, which, by the way, I think that's what this is about. That is what this is about. You mentioned it, too. It wasn't about, you were talking about the burglary. You're talking about the violence.
Oh, yeah, I'm prejudiced. I'm biased, no question.
Yeah, exactly. But that's not what this is about. This is not about that. This is about the burglary and all.
But see, if you're making a very important point.
Yeah.
If you're right that this is not about the proceeding regarding the robbery, if you're right, then something is wrong. And that's what we're watching here today. There's a media component where people say, oh, my gosh, O.J. is focused on O.J., and there's room for that observation and criticism. But there's also a problem in a criminal justice system that says no double jeopardy when the criminal case is closed if, you're right, if this is all, the length of sentence and the way the justice system is dealing with this, payback for something earlier that the criminal justice system did not convict him on.
And it's not supposed to be. It's not. Well, precisely.
You can't avoid. You can't turn that part of your brain off.
The system is flawed. And every time I think about O.J., I'm thinking about all the thousands of poor guys, poor black guys, you know, felons who have no shot. There are no cameras. You know, nobody really gives a damn about them. And one thing they may say, you know, one thing they may do puts them out the street. O.J.'s got options. He's got options. He's always been a money maker.
Does he still have options now?
He still's got a lot of
options. Sure.
He's still got a lot of options. There are a lot of people right now, just like with Michael, there are a lot of people right now thinking, how can we get this guy?
But to be clear, if O.J. Simpson starts to generate revenue, that is revenue that goes to the family.
There's a judgment in place. The only thing that's protected right now is his pensions, and his tax.
Right, and he owes your clients about what, $30 million
plus interest now. Like,
but Ari, I want to get back to one thing, and Katie too. We keep talking about the criminal case, and he was acquitted on that. But there's another provision in criminal law that you see in trials also. It's called prior bad acts or prior past conduct. That in a lot of proceedings, it's not whether there's a conviction or not, it's whether there's significant evidence that suggests you still engaged in this conduct. But yes, I'd like to see in a discretionary consideration that maybe the poor board, they're not going to, but I'd like to see it.
I don't want to get too lawyerly on
Yeah, you do.
Oh, I hate
want to get
lawyerly
to lawyer.
stuff.
He does want to get to
Don't
lawyer.
embarrass me right now,
in the middle of our parole board hearings, and it's not every day we cover parole boards.
No. In fact, this is the first I've ever covered.
But to be clear and to be fair, whatever one's opinions of O.J. Simpson, you're referring to a doctrine that usually is used in sentencing when there are findings about whether someone has exhibited a pattern of illicit or illegal conduct.
No,
the parole board...
Trials, too.
Yeah, in trials, too. But the parole board is not, I think you'll agree with me, the parole board is not looking at a double homicide that he was acquitted of.
And they announced that they're not going to consider it.
It's my wish list, it's my lens, it's my bias, and I'm voicing here.
We also heard from the official there that talked about what his post-prison life could look like, this idea that he's going to move to Florida. Questions were being asked about the support system, resident family that could serve as the support system. Here again is his daughter. This is 48-year-old Arnell Simpson. This is O.J.'s oldest daughter from his first marriage with Marguerite. Let's take a listen.